Let's dive in and explore these 12 perspectives together. I promise it might just change the way you see yourself, others, and the world. Hi, I'm Britney Shawley. I've been a spiritual therapist for the last 15 years, and this is my Miracles of Mind ministry, where we learn to transform our thinking and our relationships from fear to love, from pain to joy through the application of A Course in Miracles. I'm so grateful that you've joined me today. Today, we will obviously be going through these 12 spiritual perspectives. But when we go through them, I want you to realize that you fall either under one category specifically, or perhaps a combination of a few. But either way, these perspectives themselves don't carry inherent meaning within them, but they are here to offer insight into how we think, into how we feel, and into how we understand the world. They also help us to meet ourselves where we are, because quite frankly, when we can finally meet ourselves where we are, that is when the spirit can meet us here too. And then together we raise our level of perception, or we raise our level of consciousness to ultimately reach a point where we're seeing ourselves clearly, seeing others clearly, seeing our purpose and part in the world clearly, and life gets a whole lot better for us and those that surround us. Even though this video today is going to be a bit longer than it normally is, I encourage two things. One, to watch this video all the way through and take notes for who you know that you love, maybe have difficulties with, and where they fall on the perspective list. And also an awareness for yourself and where you fall on the list. And you can go through it with me, and perhaps you know already on your own where you stand, but maybe you need a little help in your own discovery. And the more understanding we have on ourselves, the better it is that we can understand how to help ourselves and help others. And you guys, I've been doing this for 15 years, so I'm ready, I am qualified to expand on these spiritual perspectives for you so that we really can understand both what the positives are in the perspective that you hold, but also perhaps some of the blocks that you still have within that perspective. So as we go through this today, just know that we're going to be examining all of these perspectives through a lens of empathy, compassion, understanding, because we all do have so many different perspectives, and it can seem really divisive in our world these days. And so to be able to understand others is a true gift. And to understand ourselves better, my goodness, you guys, this is the type of tools that we're looking for. So I really hope to answer your questions. I hope to inspire your heart, and I hope to bring peace to your mind that there really is another way of looking at things that can help us to have meaningful relationships in our lives. You are most definitely in the right place, and I'm so glad you're here. I really encourage that you like and subscribe and check out that pinned comment below. And so perhaps even let me know in the comments which one of these perspectives is closest to you right now where you are. So let's do this. Let's start with perspective number one, and we're going to slowly work our way up the levels of perception until we get to the top. And when we get to the top, it's going to be a new message for you, something that brings us all together in unity. So you're going to want to wait until the end so you figure out what that is. It's the most helpful part about this whole thing. All of these steps work together to bring us to that whole. So stay with me, okay? So the first perspective is the self-reflective seeker. The self-reflective seeker has a focus of growth, learning, and curiosity. I'm going to try and give you actually a story for each one of these to the best of my ability, whether it's a story of my own personal experience in this perspective, or whether it is a story of a client that I've worked with or a friend that I have. I want to try and make this as practical and relatable to you as possible. So this first one, the self-reflective seeker, immediately shot me back to the beginning of my journey. I was 110% a self-reflective seeker. And this is what it looked like for me. I was still struggling with certain addictions. I was still struggling with self-doubt and not knowing myself. But I also knew that I was here for a purpose. I knew that I was here for something greater than myself, and I just didn't know what that was. So I was open to learning. I was open to healing. I was open to transformation. And the way that that looked at that time is, for example, I would have a whole bunch of spiritual books that I was reading and studying. I would take these books, I'd bring them outside, I'd have my journal, I'd be in the sun, I'd have my drink and I'd have my snack, and I'd just be like me in the universe, right? I would tend to read some things and then close my eyes and sit with it and marinate in it and think about it and contemplate it and relay it to my life. And this was the beginning steps of me cultivating a relationship with my inner teacher and realizing that, I have a teacher inside my mind that can help me with self reflection, that can help me on this path of seeking so that I can actually find what I'm looking for instead of being a perpetual seeker for the rest of my life. It was transformative, powerful, and so beautiful to help me trust this guidance inside of myself. Like, does this sound like you? Does this sound like where you are at? If so, definitely let me know below because this is a lot of us can relate to this space. Either we are there or we have been through there. So these people are often really deeply motivated by the desire to uncover their true self and expand their spiritual understanding. The journey also involves studying diverse ideas and reflecting on our experiences to uncover deeper truths. Okay, so these people also see challenges as opportunities to grow and to get closer with our higher purpose. So they're very much open minded, reflected, eager to learn and grow, and self aware and curious. But there are in each of these perspectives some points of resistance that we can hit up against. And these resistance points are blocks that can keep us stuck in that perspective instead of constantly growing in our awareness. I've called that the authority problem. You will notice that just last Saturday, I put out a video that's called the authority problem. I think we can put it up on the screen here for you to check it out if you are so inspired. Check it out after this video, of course. But that will give you a deeper insight into what the actual authority problem is if you are unsure. But for today, we're just going to kind of see the different types of authority problems that can show up in ourselves, in our lives, depending on what perspective we rest on at that time. So for the authority problem, the self-reflective seeker generally grapples with the authority problem that's rooted in dependence on external validation or intellectual pursuits. While they're deeply curious and they desire to grow and have their gifts be shared with the world, they sometimes lean on prioritizing tools and teachers and systems outside the self instead of prioritizing that inner connection with God. And so, if that happens, there can be a lot of doubt that comes up and being able to hear God's guidance directly, which can also lead us toward more teachers and idols that perpetually keep us seeking and we never find. This is also where a lot of people might lean into spiritual teachings such as non duality, for example, that even though it has good intentions to bring us to the oneness and the unity with which we seek, there's also a tendency in things like that to bypass what we're actually thinking and bypass what we're actually feeling in and what it trades itself for is concepts, just concepts of oneness and the illusion of self without actually having that transformative inner journey that happens when we actually take guidance from our inner teacher. So it's really important that we don't just hold on to intellectual concepts and ideas. And it's important that we just don't constantly seek and have teachers and idols outside of ourselves telling us what to do, but that we really turn inward and start to connect with our inner teacher so we can learn the power of our strength and our reason and how to see things truly from the inside out. There's an affirmation that goes along with this that I've tried to have for each and every one of these perspectives, and perhaps it would be helpful for you. But the affirmation for this one is I honor the voice for God within me, which is also the voice for love. I honor the voice for love within me, trusting that each moment of reflection and growth brings me closer to my true purpose. My inner guidance is clear, loving, and always trustworthy. All right, moving right on to number two. This is the confident believer, the confident believer. So they often focus on like certainty, stability, faith. The story that comes to mind with this one is a client of mine, and we're just going to call her Abby for today. Abby knew that she could heal. She had the faith in healing, and she wanted to heal very bad, that she was doing everything she could to try to heal. But really, what Abby was struggling with is sabotage. So she would sabotage with food addiction, and that was something that kept her stuck. It was like she would take, 3 steps forward and she would take 2 steps back. And it felt like she really couldn't get anywhere, although she was very confident in her beliefs and that she could heal. She wasn't quite sure why she wasn't. She came to work with me and we did some inner work on her beliefs. And we started to look at the beliefs that were maintaining the eating issue. And so the beliefs came as the answer to the question, what is my payoff? What am I getting out of this? What am I using this for? Because when we're a confident believer, we recognize that we are responsible for what we think and that we are responsible for what we do. And if we don't like what we're doing, we must change our thinking about what we're doing. And then our actions can change because our thoughts have changed. We did deep diving into what her beliefs were that were maintaining this faulty problem solving of the food. So the food is not the problem. The food was trying to solve the problem underneath. So when we started to excavate the problem underneath and really see the problem as it is, the problem started to be replaced by the solution. And then when the solution came, she was healed. And since then, she doesn't struggle with this issue anymore. And because it's not an issue anymore, she's much more confident than she ever was before. And so her confidence just went through the roof and it's oozing out of her. And now she carries it with her to work, and she works with young children. And so she's able to see the transformation in these children because of a transformation in herself. And so because she's overcome this issue, it doesn't mean that she's not vigilant against it. It doesn't mean that she's not consistent in her practices against it, because she is, but she's also embraced the healing in confidence that that is God's will for her. God wills us to be healed because God wills us to be happy. So she started to rely on him as her healer instead of even me or anyone else. I just helped guide her to her inner teacher, which is where she needed to go to receive the healing and answers and correction herself. Okay. So these people will oftentimes be grounded in beliefs and find great comfort in knowing that the spiritual path is secure and unshakable. But even though they have these beliefs, as you've seen in the story, we can definitely struggle in being consistent if we let sabotage come in. There's also some other blocks in this that are tied in with the authority problem. And the authority problem in this respect is having confidence in one's own beliefs. And that's not the authority problem in itself, actually, but that's quite a strength to have confidence in your beliefs. Like, to have confidence in what you believe can be a power, okay? But you have to believe in the right things for it to be a power. But if you believe in the right things, it could be your stability. It can help you navigate life with certainty. It's literally a power, and it can bring peace. But here's where the tricky part is in regards to being confident in your beliefs, that when confidence leans too much on your own interpretation or your self-reliance, instead of being grounded in God's authority or God's guidance, that's where things go askew. Okay. So without God's guidance, confidence can slip into arrogance, where you prioritize what you think over truly seeking the deeper understanding and deeper answer through the surrendering of your own will in favor of God's will. So that's where it's an authority problem, where you start trusting in your own strength and your own beliefs instead of surrendering your own thoughts and beliefs and allowing the thoughts and beliefs that you share with God to replace your own limited beliefs. Because remember, our own beliefs and thoughts and conclusions happen based on the consciousness we're at and what surrounds us in the time of our life. So if we're on the journey of awakening and we're on the journey of spiritual growth and evolution, you better believe we're going to be questioning our thoughts and beliefs to let them go, to open to higher thoughts and higher beliefs that align with the will of God, because the will of God is ultimately our greatest good. In A Course in Miracles, it says God's will for me is perfect happiness. So if we aren't perfectly happy, which being on earth, you don't see that very often, but there is a path to get there, and it's through his inner teacher. So in those times where we are unhappy, where we are sabotaging, where we are having difficulties, where we are being impacted by things in the world, it's a call for us to turn within and heal our mind about it. That's all. It's not a call to feel guilty or to feel bad. It's a call to turn within, to change our minds and to change our beliefs about the situation. And then we can find peace and actually guidance to shift things and change things in the way that needs to be shifted or changed. Another thing in regards to this that I wanted to tie into here is that when you're a confident believer in your own ideas, a lot of the time we teach ourselves ideas and then have to unlearn it before we can learn anew. So an example of that is forgiveness. A lot of the time we're taught forgiveness from religion. We're taught forgiveness from other spiritual teachers. We're taught forgiveness just by like, oh, we just forgive and forget. It's all good. But that's not how forgiveness is. Forgiveness isn't just like a forgive and forget. Forgiveness isn't just an ignoring of harmful actions or words. It's not that at all. It's not like pretending that the bad stuff doesn't happen and like, oh, all is love and light, everything is fine. No, that's not forgiveness. Jesus in A Course in Miracles says that forgiveness without correction is an empty gesture. So forgiveness literally corrects misperceptions, changes our mind from fear to love, from pain to joy. That is what the forgiven perception will show. Instead of looking through the eyes of pain or grievance or hate or regret, it transforms through forgiveness to look out through compassion and understanding and love, quite frankly. So forgiveness is a corrective action. True confidence, like the true power of confidence without an authority problem, uses discernment. discernment between what is true and untrue, what is real and unreal. It doesn't ignore the unreal in favor of the real. It takes the love in the real and corrects the unreal, both in our mind and in the world, if we are so guided to do so by the voice. So there's a good example of this from Jesus. You guys know, if you know me, which I know you know me by now, but if you don't, here's what's up. I'm not a religious person. I'm definitely a spiritual person. I didn't grow up with any religion or Christianity or Catholicism or anything like that. But I do love Jesus. And I have had spiritual experiences that brought him to me and let me know that he's my teacher, my guide, and my friend and my brother. And so he teaches me everything. But sometimes with Jesus, he uses his own stories to best help because let's get real, he's like the best demonstration there is for peace on earth, right? So Jesus showed us how to get this right. He showed us that he never confused people's God created identity with their harmful actions. So, for example, he saw the Pharisees as children of God. And that's why he was able to communicate to them and invite them into the home and like share space with them. But he also was not afraid to call out their behavior when it was against love and truth. He modeled how to stand firmly in truth without losing the sight of love. So we have to be mindful in this perspective to be overly confident about our beliefs. We have to, in a sense, be confident in the ideas of love because love is the ultimate reality. We could be confident that we have an inner teacher to help us heal our mind. But we have to be very open in this perspective to not be so definitive in what we think we believe and instead open to higher ideas of forgiveness, higher ideas of ourselves, higher ideas of others, so that we cannot be confused about who is God's child, who is innocent and loved beyond measure, and who is the ego that makes mistakes, and we don't condone those mistakes. Okay, so there's a difference. And so this perspective can help us learn that difference. And so it's so potent and powerful in many, 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 many ways. But here's the affirmation for this beautiful perspective. And that affirmation is I surrender my need to control and place my confidence in God's authority, trusting his love to guide my actions, decisions, and purpose with unwavering clarity and confidence that comes from him. Don't you feel it? Don't you feel it? I feel it. Okay, so we're on to our third perspective. This one is the doubtful or struggling individual. I'm sure you know a lot of these people. I know a lot of these people. So it's really important to understand them and understand them with so much passion. Our doubtful and struggling brother and sister souls are often seeking clarity and reassurance. That's really what they need first and foremost on their journey. And oftentimes helping them to gain clarity and have reassurance in themselves is enough. And they can help themselves overcome the doubt. Okay. But the thing that came to my mind with this wasn't exactly an example, like a story, but it's just my experience with doubt and then helping others who also become quite consumed in doubt. I have learned through A Course in Miracles that doubt is the result of conflicting wishes. Okay, doubt is the result of conflicting wishes. What does that even mean? So, what that means is that inside our minds, we are taught in A Course in Miracles that we have both the spirit, the Holy Spirit that comes from God, and we have the ego that is self made, that is self constructed from the world, right? And so the ego is honestly the block to the voice for God. So we are learning through forgiveness and mind training to undo the ego's perception of things so that we can open up to the spiritual perspective of things. So we can open up to how things really are instead of how we think they are. And so when we're first going about life, we have our own goals, our own plan, our own way, our own will, our own thoughts, our own purpose. And so that's one way. But then we're also learning God's will, God's way, God's mind, God's focus, God's purpose for our life. So that's the second way. So when we're on the spiritual path, it's easy for us to say, of course, I want God's will for me. Of course, I want happiness. Of course, I want peace. Of course, I want purpose. But the thing that we're forgetting is we still have the beliefs and the wants and the desires of the ego that are hidden in our mind, that if we still are struggling and we are still doubtful, it's probably because we're still believing in two thought systems. This is because we probably know we want God's will, but then we're also asking for something else. And the something else is often in the container of asking to get approval, asking to get validation, asking to be loved, right? Which is innocent enough, but it's asking to get instead of asking to give. Giving is of God. As you give, you receive. So when you're in the state of learning how to give, you're also learning how to receive, which is in proper alignment with God, instead of just seeking to get those things outside of yourself. A spiritual path helps us to have all the things you're seeking outside to find them within. And that's the big point. But a lot of the time, we can't overcome this doubt on our own. We need help from other people. And so what I've realized when I work with people is that when they start to realize that they're asking for two different things and you start to explore the payoff, like what you're trying to get out of something, what's your own goal on it. When this gets exposed, we can lay it down as useless and flip over here to God's will. And that's how healing can occur. But this stage, in the doubtful stage, the struggling stage, it's a time of profound questioning. It's a time of questioning these thoughts, questioning these beliefs, questioning what you want and what your goals are. It's perfectly normal to question here. And so this is how you start to get to the beliefs that are no longer serving you, that you are ready to let go of, that you are ready to lay at Jesus's feet if that works for you, that you are willing to like hand up to the divine if that's easier for you, right? This is a time where you will often feel uncomfortable, but it's because you're yearning for deeper connection to the truth. So it's okay to be in this place. We're all going to move through this phase at one point, but we just have to recognize when people are there and be compassionate with them, be patient with them, be gentle with them, be supportive to them. And know that what these people often really need is a supportive community. They need a supportive network, not as much to preach to them, but hold space as they navigate and ask questions and they're curious themselves. Part of the authority problem in this perspective is that they will often fear surrendering to divine guidance because they're afraid of losing their own autonomy or being further confused, right? This fear can create mental resistance where doubting whether such guidance even exists or if you're worthy of receiving it. That's a big one. The majority of my clients who are in this perspective feel that they're not worthy of receiving it. And we have to work on worthiness before they can even accept, what they're here for and like who they are, right? So when these people are seeking clarity, they might turn to external teachers and gurus, hoping that they hold the answers for them. And a lot of the time, they will supply some answers that will help. It's very, very valuable insights that other teachers and gurus can offer to us. But there is a tendency to adopt their thoughts instead of our own. There is a tendency to then be like, oh, okay, that must be the truth. It comes from you. Instead of grappling with it yourself, contemplating it yourself, thinking about it yourself till you come to the awareness and realization that this is the truth inside yourself. So it's really, really, really important not to have dependency on other people or other things, but that they could just help you to lead you back to God's guidance within. That's really, really important here. Do you want to know your affirmation for this? Okay, the affirmation for this is, I am worthy of receiving God's guidance, and I trust that surrendering to divine love strengthens my autonomy and clarity and peace. Moving right along. Number 4, this is the academic or theologian. The focus here is on intellectual exploration and understanding. I wanted to share a story here of my friend that I am calling James. James was a student at university and he was studying religious studies. He was obviously aware of all of the spiritual texts from all over the world. And when James first encountered A Course in Miracles, he was captivated. Its concepts of forgiveness and love and the shifts from fear to truth absolutely fascinated him. And so he just poured over the material with absolute academic rigor. Like he was obsessed, analyzing the structures, cross referencing it with all ancient texts, and just constructing detailed conversations with it. James also loved sharing these insights with others. That's why he constructed conversations with it, because he really wanted to hold down these conversations with others. And so he would try and bring these big complex ideas and make them simple so that he can talk to them with his friends and fellow students that were in his classes. So while he could explain the course inside and out, he struggled to truly live its principles in his life. He taught about forgiveness, but he still held on to subtle resentments towards those that he went to school with and those that he worked with. And so, because of that, he found that it was difficult to let go of fears of failure and always being right. These are the things that he struggled with. But one day, one of the students in his class approached him. He asked him a simple but profound question. He said, James, how do you feel when you apply the teachings of the course to your life? I mean, you talk about the course all the time, but how do you feel when you apply that? James didn't have an answer to this. He completely froze. And the truth was that he didn't know. He realized he had spent so much time dissecting the ideas intellectually that he had never actually fully experienced them himself. That's why he was still struggling in his life. He was speaking about forgiveness and love, but he wasn't living from that place of forgiveness and love inside of himself and his relationships. So that night, dear James sat with the Course, but this time, not as trying to be an intellectual scholar to know everything and tell everyone about it, but this time as a seeker. So he set aside his need to analyze and learn this for other people, and he just simply let the words wash over him. And he began to pray. And this was something that he actually hadn't done with the Course. And I really encouraged him to do it when we connected. And so slowly but surely, he started to pray with and ask for guidance, not from his head, but from his heart. And then slowly, the principles of forgiveness started to be applied to his personal life. And he was starting to see his friends and the people that he worked with differently. He started to find compassion, gentleness in his heart, where there was once a wall up and a very kind of defense system around himself that prevented these relationships from getting closer to him. So over time, James noticed a big shift. He still loved the intellectual parts of the Course, but he no longer relied just on the Course and its words alone. He really started to focus on his inner guidance and the inner prompts that brought him a deep sense of peace and joy, my friends. Like total transformation in this brother because of shifting from the head to his heart with these teachings. So it really, really changed him. James's journey can remind us that while the intellect is a powerful tool, spiritual truth is sometimes to be lived, not just understood in the head. By aligning his heart with his intellect, James discovered the joy and depth that came from truly embodying these teachings. This is something that is so intriguing because those who are from the academic path are used to studying and learning and reading and just memorizing all the time. So when you come to something like a spiritual teaching, like A Course in Miracles, it's trying to get you to surrender your intellectual faculties so that you can step into your heart space of feeling, which is where your true vision and inner teacher is, which then can allow you to look on these topics from your soul, from your higher mind, instead of your lower mind. And so then you can almost like build up from the bottom. Then you can kind of take the theory and the intellect and it makes sense because you've had experiences that back it up, back it up, back it up. So the authority problem here is obviously the over reliance on logic, which can keep you disconnected from spiritual truths that require faith and feeling. So if you're an academic, thank you. We need you and we need your beautiful brains and minds to really understand the Course and what it's teaching. But then thank you also for slowing it down and allowing yourself to integrate these teachings into your heart so you can live them in your life. Okay. You want to know what your affirmation is? Your affirmation says, I align my intellect with my heart, trusting God to guide me from understanding to wisdom and from thought to love, so I can deeply experience these truths in my life. Beautiful. Okay, number 5, the skeptic and non believer. I must say, I don't have that many of these people come to me as a client, but I do know a lot of these people. And so I have a story here that I want to lean on, and I'm reaching far back in the memory bank, far back in the memory bank. But I think that this is a really good story to kind of relate to this. And I think a lot of you will probably have skeptics and non believers around you. Perhaps let me know in the comments if you do. And perhaps you have a story of how you experience them, or perhaps you're the skeptic and non believer and you're found your way here. I'm so glad you're here. So, anyways, the focus for you is questioning and exploring from a distance. So it's kind of like, okay, what's going on there? That's intriguing, but I don't know about that. Right. So you kind of stay on the outskirts. You just kind of observe from afar, which is totally fine. Everybody's got to do that until we have our own experiences, right? So this is why I wanted to introduce you to my friend named Emily. She is extremely logical, very, very, I would say, left brained. She does a lot of science. She does a lot of research. And so obviously she uses her logic and her reason for everything she does. And spirituality, she respected it. She knew I was spiritual, but it was very abstract and ungrounded. So she didn't really care. There was a period of time where I worked at a gym and it was called Family Fitness. And she used to come in to manage her health and her stress and all those good things. And I was a customer service rep. She would come in and I would say hello and I'd ask how her day was. And so we started to get into these conversations where I would share some spiritual ideas with her. And she'd be like, that's interesting. But it wouldn't really go further than But there was one day after she had a workout and she overheard me talking to somebody else. Okay. And then she came over and she asked me a question. She's like, how can you trust something you can't prove? Isn't this just wishful thinking? I'm like, well, hello there, Emily. All right. And my response was basically like this. It was something like this. It was, I get it. It's hard to trust what you cannot see, but sometimes you don't need proof. You just need to be open to the possibility. Have you ever just stopped and listened to what the moment is teaching you? Powerful, right? Emily just kind of like shrugged it off. She's like, no, but like, okay, whatever. And kind of like left, right? I was like, okay, peace out. But a few weeks later, she is, walking out of the gym again. And this time she had an experience. And she told me about this later, obviously, but she had an experience. And what her experience was like is that this was a super, super windy day. And the way that the gym was set up is you have a bunch of other kind of businesses that are close by. So you can kind of get into this like swirling center of wind. And it used to get pretty crazy in this windy spot. But anyways, there was gusts of wind that were swirling and leaves that were around her feet. And she had this experience where she paused right there in the moment of it all and she was unexpectedly struck by this sheer power and presence and peace. So the wind was like tugging at her clothes and her hair. And she had this simultaneous feeling of being small, yet absolutely maximal in magnitude, right? She just felt this unlimited power just wash over her and through her. This was a first time experience to her. And she really felt the need to analyze it. But there was no way she'd be like, oh, it's just like pressure current, like systems and like airflow, like whatever the science mind would say, which, I'm not sure. But she didn't even go there because she knew immediately that this was representative of something greater than herself, right? That it had greater meaning than she could put on it. So basically, after that time, like her walls just came down. She finally had an experience that there was something greater than herself that she could trust, and she put her trust in it. So she started journaling more, and we occasionally would go for walks together. And she became more and more and more open to the reality that there was something greater than ourselves and that she doesn't necessarily have to see it in order to believe it, but that she can have faith in something and her openness to experience it. Her little tiny willingness is enough for her to experience the effects of faith. So she's just like, okay, fine. Maybe I'll just put this faith on as if it's a science experiment. And she was brought to her own experience that really allowed her to see that there's something greater going on than what she sees with the physical senses of her body. So it was huge. And even though she's normally like an evidence based approach, when you have your own experiences, that's enough evidence for us. And I'm sure you understand that if you've had experiences yourself. And if not, open to the experiences. Be open, be willing, ask for them, and they will show up. This is an ask and receive universe. These beautiful souls, because they are, still quite doubtful and skeptic, they can get quite angry and triggered sometimes. And so they might struggle with those emotions that pop out because the emotions of anger and frustration and pissed offness can be like the wall and the block to actually getting deeper to see what we're actually thinking and what those fears of spirituality really are. And so as a skeptic, they generally will struggle to trust the divine because it feels intangible and just outside the realm of logic. So it doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel safe to them. So this approach to spirituality can block our intuitive insights and deeper spiritual experiences that require faith and vulnerability. So this is part of like the authority problem part. So it's something to definitely be mindful of, to be aware of, and to realize that, these emotional blocks can be blocks to experiencing faith and vulnerability underneath. What else did I want to say on this for you? That could just lead then to cycles of frustration and blame that keep us distanced from our inner peace and clarity. And it has us justifying that upset instead of allowing the loving perspective and presence to grow stronger each day. This is definitely something to keep in mind so that we don't get stuck in these old patterns, but then can actually have our experiences that lead us up the ladder of consciousness. So the affirmation for these beautiful souls is I release my fear of vulnerability and spirituality and allow divine love to guide me in ways beyond my current understanding. How humble is that? Okay. And let's keep these people in our mind as well. If you're someone who's watching who is no longer a skeptic and you've had experiences that raise your faith, perhaps share those stories, perhaps share those experiences, because when you can share those more with those who are skeptical, they're more likely to have their faith raised when they realize that it works for us. So this is part of like the authority problem part. So it's something to definitely be mindful of, to be aware of, and to realize that these emotional blocks can be blocks to experiencing faith and vulnerability underneath. What else did I want to say on this for you? That could just lead then to cycles of frustration and blame that keep us distanced from our inner peace and clarity. And it has us justifying that upset instead of allowing the loving perspective and presence to grow stronger each day. This is definitely something to keep in mind so that we don't get stuck in these old patterns, but then can actually have our experiences that lead us up the ladder of consciousness. So the affirmation for these beautiful souls is I release my fear of vulnerability and spirituality and allow divine love to guide me in ways beyond my current understanding. How humble is that? Okay. And let's keep these people in our mind as well. If you're someone who's watching who is no longer a skeptic and you've had experiences that raise your faith, perhaps share those stories, perhaps share those experiences, because when you can share those more with those who are skeptical, they're more likely to have their faith raised when they realize that it works for us. So now let's move on to number 6. The number 6 is the spiritual but not religious. Spiritual but not religious. I must say, this is the majority of my clients. Spiritual but not religious. So their focus is more personal spirituality and universal truths. Okay, is this you? Is this you? Let me know below. This is like I said, the majority of my clients, and they're all like very open-minded. So they're willing to be wrong, they're willing to learn, they're willing to grow, they're willing to know, they're willing to listen. And I found that these people often really love Jesus still, even though they have parted ways from religion most of the time, or at least majority of religious teachings they've pulled away from, but they still maintain Jesus because they know that the Bible isn't always wholly accurate about who Jesus is. But when they have a relationship with Jesus on their heart, hello, it is life changing. And they know that. So one of the stories that I wanted to share, just really, really briefly here, they're not going to be long stories from here on out. They're going to be very, very short. But this story I wanted to share about a client of mine named Maria. She grew up in a very religious household. Did you? Did you grow up in a religious household? She never felt fully connected to her faith or the rituals or the dogma that her upbringing came with it. And as an adult, she discovered meditation and journaling and affirmations and all of these things. She started to blend them together in a way that seemed to work for her and that like resonated with her heart, but she always felt like ungrounded. She just didn't feel grounded. She didn't feel connected to herself. She felt like something was missing. And then one day she is having an experience of meditation, which I was really like a advocate for. Do that more and listen more and ask what you should do next. There was a download that came for her. And the download that came for her is that she needed consistency, that she needed to commit to something and have consistency with something in order to see the results. So she committed to a morning meditation practice and a morning gratitude practice and kept that up for a bunch of weeks in a row. She's still doing it, but after a bunch of weeks in a row, she started to recognize how that structure actually didn't restrict her at all. And in fact, it gave her so much freedom. But up until that point, her ego was like, no, if you do structure, it becomes a ritual. And if it's a ritual, then that becomes almost a god in its own right. We don't have to go there. Really, what it is that when we set up these structures, then we have something to stay within in order to reach the goal that we're reaching. It's kind of like if you're going to go to university and you're going to take a degree, you're going to go to the classes, you're going to take study periods, you're going to take time to read so that you can pass that grade and move on to the next grade, right? The same thing here with spirituality, that if you want peace and you want purpose and you want joy and you want to know why you're here, then you've got to put in the work, you've got to put in the time, you've got to put in the training and consistently and regularly, right? That's how you're going to get the results, is by putting in the time consistently and regularly. And when she did, it brought her to spiritual truths. It brought her to the sense of like authenticity and feeling fulfilled and just having great gratitude just ooze from her. Total transformation by just setting up structure in her daily life instead of just like bopping from spiritual tool to the next and workshop to the next and just always seeking, right? Which is easy to happen if we don't have that structure or people to remind us that, we have everything within and we can help you connect there. These beautiful souls are very open-minded, adaptable, authentic, harmonious, rooted in love and connection. But I would say that some of their authority problems in this is, like I've just mentioned, not setting up the spiritual habits and following along with the spiritual habits every day, right? I don't know about you, but I have a daughter. And so we have habits, just like at night before you go to bed, you're going to go to the bathroom, you're going to put your PJs on, you're going to brush your teeth, you're going to read a book, you're going to have a bedtime story, and then we're going to turn on the night light, and then we're going to turn on the lights, we're going to go to bed. Like there's a specific structure that you follow. Kids expect it. And if you don't have that structure, they can often lose their minds or run their ship, and everybody loses their minds when that happens. Just like we need that structure for children, we need that structure for us as adults, but it just has to be self-regulated, right? We have to realize how important it is. So it's an authority problem not to do that because, again, you start relying on constantly seeking or other idols or teachers to tell you things, and you start to intellectually grasp ideas, but not experientially let them transform your life. And so it's that whole thing. And a big part of the trap that can come here too is like spiritual bypassing, because we are taught that only love is real, only light is real. And so it's very easy for the self, if we haven't trained our mind and haven't undone our ego through forgiveness, to just bypass those lower base emotions by just either saying an affirmation or saying, you know, just brushing a hand at it. Oh, that's not real, or whatever it may be. What that does is it prevents you from addressing deeper emotions. It prevents you from addressing the deeper challenges. And you just skip to another concept like love and light, right? It's not all love and light here on this planet. Love and light is true in reality, but on this planet, there's a lot of things that are the opposite of love and light. It's not a matter of us just wiping a hand at the everything that's not love and light. It's a matter of bringing the love and light to everything that is dark so that things can be transformed. True growth comes from engaging with your emotions, letting your emotions reveal to you what you're thinking, letting your thinking reveal to you if it's real or not real. So you can let it be undone if it's not real and allow yourself to grow and expand if it is. And I mean, if it's causing you pain, you can definitely guarantee it's not real. And so you need to do some introspection. But this is how we can ultimately ground ourselves in truth, is by not spiritually bypassing, but actually heal those thoughts and heal those emotions and heal our heart. Okay. Really important. So here is an affirmation for you, my dear. It says this: I trust that surrendering to divine guidance enhances my freedom, grounding me in love and truth. I embrace consistent practices that deepen my connection to God and allow me to experience authentic spiritual growth. Beautiful. So the next one is number 7. Here we go. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. The concerned traditionalist. So our concerned traditionalist is focused on stability, tradition, and faithfulness. I'm sure you probably know a lot of these people. They are, I must say, I think the one person that comes to mind, or the main person that comes to my mind, is my dad. He definitely believes in tradition and like the old world and the old ways and the old laws. And he's also a big believer, like his, I would say, religion of sorts is the law of attraction. Right. And so the faith that comes from the law of attraction is beautiful because you get to learn that there's a laws of the universe and that you abide by them, and that we ask for, you receive. And it's great. It's a helpful thing to do. And so because of the law of attraction, my dad does have quite a faith-filled, happy, abundant life. But what I've noticed with my dad is if he actually gets quiet and goes to sleep at night, he can't sleep at night. And he really struggles with some things inside of himself that he hasn't fully overturned or corrected or healed or let go of yet. So he struggles a lot on his inner playing field. And that can be expressed a lot of the time with like resistance to new ideas, resistance to new models of living, resistance to, new approaches in the world, and putting different things on top instead of like money or tradition. And so a lot of the time, these people feel deep comfort and meaning in time honored rituals, doctrines, spiritual traditions, because it provides them with a sense of order and continuity that anchors them in the chaotic world. It's not like we're supposed to change their mind. It's not like we're supposed to change their perspective. We are meant to understand their perspective. We are meant to accept their perspective as it is and respect it as it is. That's their current anchor in a chaotic world. Like that's needed at this time for them. With that being said, it's important to recognize that there is space in this perspective for new ideas, and to really open to new ideas with curiosity, so that and realize that new ideas do not threaten your current understanding of things. They just help improve upon your way of being, your way of life. Your spiritual foundation is meant to help you to grow, not to challenge you or threaten what you currently believe. So the authority problem in this category is often a fear that questioning long held beliefs will undermine your identity or the stability that you've built around tradition. Okay. So this reluctance to explore new ideas can create a block, keeping your faith rigid instead of allowing it to evolve in alignment with God's ongoing guidance. So by clinging too tightly to traditions and just one particular puzzle piece of the path that works for you, it prevents you from actually growing to the next stage. It actually can prevent you from having those revelatory experiences that you need to take you out of the box that keeps you limited and yo-yoing in your emotions and in your perspectives of things. A lot of the time with these people too, they will think they are right and they defend it and they control that they know what they're talking about, and then others are wrong. It can be very kind of behind a wall, which prevents them from questioning their beliefs, right? Because they think they're right because it's founded in tradition, which is okay. But it's also important to look here too with this idea of like the law of attraction thrown in here, is that when we do that and use the law of attraction, it can be very, very helpful at the beginning. But if we realize that sometimes we can subtly lead to a reliance on personal control instead of surrendering to God's broader guidance. So this will keep our worldview intact and may limit our openness to evolving perspectives, and also limits us in what we are able to receive. Because the law of attraction a lot of the time can be focused on getting. I'm going to get this house, I'm going to get this car, I'm going to get this money, I'm going to get these things, which is great. But once you like kind of like people who are, go through the movie industry and stuff, they go through all of that work to be making the money and to being in the spotlight and having all the things. And then they have all the things and they have all the money and realize, oh my God, I'm still not happy. And it's because it's been this external seeking instead of an internal listening. Because again, it's inside where your true happiness, abundance, and peace and joy is going to come from in a way that is stable. So you can go to bed at night knowing that you're doing the right thing, living the right way, seeing the right things, and your peace, right? And so it has to be an inside out approach, not an outside in approach. So this kind of traditional path can sometimes keep us stuck in the way things were instead of evolving into the way things are and will be. This traditional perspective also ties in with the religion perspectives, that sort of thing, which all of these things have amazing stuff in it that we can glean out, but also all of these things can have authority problems in it that keep us stuck to the past. We don't want to be stuck to the past. We're here for the future. We're here for the future generations. We're here to change the world. We're here to see ourselves as spirit, which leads us into the next section. Actually, let's give you your affirmation first, and then we'll lead into the next section. The affirmation is for our concerned traditionalists with whom we love. My faith is strengthened as I remain open to God's ongoing guidance. Faith is strengthened as I remain open to his guidance. Number 8. Number 8 is the spiritual mentor or leader. The focus here is guiding and supporting others. So this also resonates with me. This was probably in my mid journey. The first story for me was at the beginning. This is kind of the middle of my journey. I would say 2013 and onward. For me, when I became a spiritual mentor or leader, it wasn't because I elected myself to be spiritual mentor or leader. Like I had no idea I can even do it back then. Now everybody knows. But back then I didn't really know that that's what you could do. And I don't know if I would have chosen that by myself because I was asking God what he would have me do. Okay. So over time, Spirit asked me to step in this position of spiritual mentor. Like I even remember when it first began and I was sitting on my stairs going up to the bedrooms upstairs, and I'm just sitting on them looking up onto like my lower level of the house and just like contemplating my life, basically meditating, but like with my eyes open. And I received this download to start YouTube videos. And I'm like, no, I don't really want to start YouTube videos. Who wants to listen to me speak? Why am I going to do that? And it was just so strong in me that I was like, okay, I think that this is what I'm being asked to do. I just have to do it. So I'd wake up every morning in my PJs with my crazy hair and I just record a video and I would upload it because if I actually looked at it, I would judge myself. But that was the beginning of me trusting my inner guidance. That was the beginning of me being a spiritual mentor. That was the beginning of me being a leader. And the more I taught, the more I learned, and the more I gave, and the more I received. And I just grew and grew and grew in that perfection of a spiritual mentor. But this is something that's really important to realize, that this is not something that we are to seek out on our own because, oh, we think this is a great opportunity to make money and have a job. No, this needs to be a calling, that you are called to do this. You're called by God to do this, right? That's what this sort of thing is. So it's really important to, tune in to that intuitive guidance to see if this is something that would be helpful for you or not. Yes, these beautiful souls feel a profound calling to help others grow spiritually and to become a source of strength and wisdom for others on the journey. But the leadership is always, I've found, rooted in compassion because you genuinely care about the well being of those that you guide, which is very true to me, at least. So these people will often strive to embody integrity and truth in the teachings and recognize the responsibility that comes with being a spiritual mentor. So it's an important role. It's such an important role. Just remember, my friends, to nurture your personal spiritual journey while you're guiding others in your leadership, because there is a tendency to overextend yourself and start taking on other people's things instead of letting God guide through you, where you're just an extension of love and you leave uplifted instead of depleted. So it's really, really important that you keep up with your spiritual practices with this. There was times when I was, in the spiritual mentor position where I'd be so focused on other people that I would just give and give and give and share and share and share that I would not fill my own cup. And so I'd be like depleting myself. And so that's so unnecessary. Make sure that you listen to your heart, listen to your soul, take care of yourself. It's a really important thing. And so that's obviously part of where we can get stuck. So it's like part of the authority problem. But the authority problem is also where we may struggle in relinquishing control, feeling that we need to shoulder the responsibility of everyone's growth. And that could just lead to burnout and subtle over identification of your role as leader. Because it is just your role. It doesn't make you special. It doesn't make you better. It doesn't even make you different. It's just your role. And thank you for doing your role. It's extremely important, but we can't be overly identifying with it. Otherwise, we become unequal to those that we're working with. It's really important for us to remember our equality as God's children and that it's God's children who are qualified to help each other. It's not me, Brittany, that's ever qualified. It's God's voice through me, right? That's why my first guidance was to start YouTube videos so that I could practice having the Holy Spirit come through me and me, Brittany, stepping out of the way so that I could just be a conduit for him. So it's also really important to make sure that we're being a spiritual teacher and leader from that point of giving and because we're inspired to do it and not to just to use it as another job, because otherwise we are trying to get things from a spiritual practice, which is just the opposite of what is God's will. And that will lead to the universe being confused about what you really want. And then you're going to be confused and it's just going to attract not so goodness to you. And we want goodness all the way because goodness all the way is God's will for us. Let's keep ourselves aligned with the giving and following the guidance. Ready for your affirmation? I trust God to work through me as I guide others, knowing that his wisdom flows where it is most needed. I release the need to control and allow divine love to lead my actions, my words, and my presence. I like saying amen. It like makes it a prayer. It's not just an affirmation. It's like a prayer, which includes all of the loving universe. We're almost done. Are you ready? This is actually one of my favorite stories because it was so miraculous, even for me, as well as for this other person. So I have to share it with you. But we're on number 9. We're on number 9. So this is the person who's experiencing spiritual crisis. I think at this time in our world, we're going to be experiencing a lot more people like this. If it's not you, right? It might be you. Focus, finding hope and healing. Okay, their focus is to find hope and healing. That's what they're looking for. They're seeking for hope and healing because they don't have hope inside of themselves and they are struggling and are in need of healing. So this is what they're looking for. So the story here goes with my dear friend. Let's just call her Kayla. Okay. So Kayla is a dear friend now, but a couple years ago, 3 years ago or so, our children went to school together. And one day early in the school year, we were both leaving at the same time. And you're moms. And so you bump up against each other and you're talking and you're sharing. And she asked me what I do. And I told her I'm a spiritual therapist. She stops her tracks. She looks me in the face and she goes, I just Googled last night for a spiritual therapist here in our town. And she said, no one popped up. I know I didn't that day. She's like, but oh my God, I prayed for you. And it's like, well, let's talk, honey, let's talk. So we exchanged numbers. I got on the phone with her. And so she obviously was like, she was in the center of a spiritual crisis, like didn't know who she was, what she was here for, had 2 young children, like struggling, just really unhappy, crying all the time. But like she was crying all the time, but also preventing herself from crying. So she didn't actually let herself release. She didn't let her emotions out because she was telling herself that if I let these emotions out, everything's going to crumble. I'm going to be a mess. I'm going to lose my mind and I'm not going to be able to carry on with life or with the children. And so when I gave her permission to feel her feelings and when I gave her permission to let it out, knowing she's not going to crumble, she's actually going to release and then she can, move on to higher thoughts about these things. She finally let the energy out. She finally allowed herself to get on her knees and just cry and release. And you know what? The spirit met her there. The spirit helped her to see herself differently, helped her to let go of the job she was in that was so horrible, helped her to realize what her purpose was. And the beautiful thing with that is she realized what her purpose was. And she started on that path. Then she got a little scared and she had to kind of go back to her old ways for a minute to realize that that wasn't working at all. And she's like, okay, yeah, no, even with a more heightened spiritual perspective, because obviously she came out of the catastrophe that she was in, the total spiritual meltdown, and she came back to herself. But what was interesting is I didn't know what had happened to her because it's been a while since we chatted. Our kids aren't in the same class anymore. And so I was about to send her a message when I was writing these notes for this talk. And when I was about to send the message, I paused and I asked, because that's what we do, is we pause and we ask for guidance if I should do something or say something. When I paused for guidance, the response that was given me was, no, don't send it to her. And I was like, oh, that's weird. Okay, I won't send it to her. The next day, she came to my house with coffee. She brought me a box of clothes, which was so sweet. And we got to talk. We got to talk all morning. And basically, she was sharing with me that she had realized she's ready to step into her purpose again, but this time from the inner guidance in her soul because she's ready. Like she's so ready. And so we got to celebrate together and love together. And just like, I just held space for her. But it was a beautiful thing to watch her come in connection with her own spiritual guidance and to realize that she is a beautiful being of light and there's nothing she cannot do. And so it's been so just, incredible journey to watch her come from this like deep place of spiritual crisis to spiritual awakening, to be at that place of being happy where she's saying yes to her purpose here. And which is what I want for every single one of us, by the way. So if she can transform from the dark hole that she was in, you can transform too. So just know that those who are in this space are in a turbulent phase of life, lots of spiritual questioning, lots of growth. It may feel disorienting. You know, you may feel like you're breaking down old patterns, all these things, but that is so very important because what's happening is you're deconstructing that idea of self that the ego offers to you so you can open up to a deeper connection with God, with your higher self. So this is a sacred journey of releasing the past and embracing a closer connection with God. This is actually a really good place to be in if you can allow yourself to be supported through it, to know you're not alone through it, and to really see it as a spiritual awakening instead of the spiritual breakdown. I just want to say to give yourself permission to grieve, to rest, to heal as needed, and to trust the clarity will emerge from the chaos. It really will. A big part of like the authority problem in this place is that when you get into those moments of pain or disorientation, you may feel abandoned by divine love and you may question your worthiness and doubt whether God is even present in your life. And this can lead you to seeking external fixes or distractions to ease the discomfort rather than turning inward to reconnect with God's unwavering love and presence. Okay, so by perceiving your struggles as evidence of separation or your unworthiness, you may unknowingly block the healing and reassurance that the divine love offers you. Just keep in mind that the struggles are not evidence of separation or unworthiness. Your struggles are a sign that you're calling for help. You're calling to be released from the darkness that you've been held captive by, and you're wanting to see it differently. You're wanting to heal. You're wanting to evolve and to grow and to be better. And that's so commendable. And it's so honored. I'm just so proud of you for even being where you are. Okay. And so know that you are not alone. You're not alone. We're here to help you. And everybody goes through that point. Everybody has to at some point, but there is hope at the end of the tunnel. Ready for your affirmation? This affirmation says this: God's love surrounds me, even in my uncertainty. I am worthy of this love, and I trust that this transformation is leading me to deeper peace and alignment with my true self. Ready? Number 10. Number 10 is the lifelong learner. Their focus is curiosity and growth all the way. I have a dear friend. We call her B. She actually calls me B. We call each other B because we just want to be together. But I absolutely adore her. And the thing that's beautiful about B is she's more of an agnostic. She doesn't really have a full on belief in God or anything of that matter. But what she does follow is joy. And she has this joy for living, just like this joy for life. And she has this joy for learning. And so she has a tendency to just learn a whole bunch of different spiritual things and seem to pick and pull what works for her in a customized way that she can apply to her life. So she's extremely creative. She pursues the joy in everything she does. and life just like unfolds before her. But it's amazing because we don't necessarily have the same belief systems, but we do have the same goal. The same goal is peace, the same goal is joy, and we both love learning. So there's so much connection there and so much beauty to be had there. And when we can accept others as they are and like not try and change them, we can see how beautiful they are and how much they have to offer us. Okay. And it can be some like incredibly beautiful experiences. But sometimes with these beautiful souls, what happens is they're always like searching for the next best thing, that they can often feel disconnected from themselves and that they can kind of be led off track of where they're going and find themselves in the phases of overwhelm. This definitely can be some of the blocks that keep us from being grounded and trusting in the wisdom and trusting in the higher source. Okay, so that really ties into the authority problem in this section, that has a tendency to seek without applying what you've learned. That can also be a big block, that you're constantly wanting to learn, consume, 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 but you don't take enough time to digest. You don't take enough time to marinate in what it is that you've learned. You don't take enough time that you extract from the teachings in the book to be like, how does this relate to me? How can I apply this perspective to my own life, for example? So it's really important to look out for that so that you're not constantly seeking outward, but you turn it within and you can integrate it. And so just keep in mind that they generally have a focus on external sources of knowledge instead of being inward focused on God's guidance and intuition. It's just important to point that out. But these beautiful souls, if they take time to reflect on what they've discovered, it can enhance their relationships, their purpose, their connection to God and to joy. But even though my friend wouldn't say, oh, it's a connection to God, she does say it's like a connection to love. It's a connection to joy, which really is the same thing. Like God is love and therefore also happiness. It's a quote from the Course. It's actually a lesson in the Course. God is love and therefore also happiness. God is but love and therefore so am I. Right. So this is what we're learning here on this spiritual path, is that I am not what I think that I am. I am what God created me to be. And we will get to that in 2 more teachings. Are you ready? With 2 more perspectives. We're almost there. Hang with me. You're doing so good. So we're on number 11. 11. This is the critical analyst. Their focus is on evaluating and discerning truth. I have a friend that I would say this is him. He's the critical analysis, but he also plays devil's advocate all the time. Like you can say something that's wholly and completely true, and he'll be like, yeah, okay, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? And I found, honestly, these people have helped me with my spiritual growth the most because I can't just now speak the words. Like they want to get to the meaning underneath the words. So they want to like look at all of the layers underneath what you're saying to make sure that it's true. But I appreciate that. Like, how are you going to get to truth without looking at all the layers underneath that make up that perception that you call true? You can't just like call it truth. Like it actually has to be true. So it's really important that we hold ourselves accountable to that sort of stuff. And I found that my critical analysis friends help me with that a whole deal. So if this is you, it's a fantastic skill. I mean, the analytical mind can be extremely, extremely helpful, but it can also leave us stuck because it keeps us in our head and it keeps us just searching with logic and thinking that we need evidence, which prevents us from being in the faith and the vulnerability and going deeper into our spiritual practices inside ourselves. We keep ourselves stuck as, just going to critically analyze everything instead of just really trusting that there's a plan that is unfolding that I'm a part of. But like I've said, there is such an importance to critical thinking. I teach critical thinking all the time. We need to make decisions, and we have leaders who are in positions of leaders making decisions for us. We have to critically analyze things. We have to critically think about things so that we're not just taking surface level talking points and believing in them, but we look at what's behind and underneath those talking points. So very important. So these beautiful souls are highly thoughtful. Okay. They are authentic in their pursuit of truth, and they are skilled evaluators. When you're talking to critical analysis, though, and if you're not one, just keep in mind that they're going to try and poke and question, ask and probe. And if what you're thinking is true, it will remain strong and stable. And if what you're thinking is perhaps not true, it might waver, but that's not a bad thing. It's going to help you to look at what needs to be let go of so you can see beyond it to what is the deeper truth, the deeper wisdom there. And that's always a good thing. We want to do that. Let's keep in mind for this person that the authority problem is skepticism because it can prevent vulnerability, and it can also keep you from trusting divine guidance. So you may find yourself doubting spiritual experiences or messages that you cannot rationally explain, which can really distance you from having your own spiritual experiences. And you'll realize as you have spiritual experiences that sometimes you can't always explain it, but explaining it isn't necessary, because when you have an experience that transforms you from the inside out, that experience is enough. It changes your whole life. And that's enough proof that what you experienced was true. Okay, so recognize that there's a tendency to prioritize external validation of truth, which may lead you to overlook the inner voice and divine wisdom. Just something to keep in mind. But here's the affirmation for this: I release my need to control through analysis and open myself to the peace and the wisdom of God's truth. So it is. Are you ready for the last one, you guys? You've arrived. We've made it. So excited. I'm going to be concluding this all for us after. And so I hope it makes more sense in the end as it all comes together in a beautiful bow. But here is number 12. Number 12 is the content creator or educator. Their focus is sharing and inspiring others. I think this is me. This is where I feel that I'm at right now. But this idea of being a content creator or educator, I believe, has come after I've gone through my own inner healing journey, where I have then expressed and shared and given that journey to others through spiritual mentorship, which has allowed me to find that certainty in both my own inner experiences and the experiences of others, which have allowed me to see the world through the highest perspective possible, which then prepares me to see the world we want to bring here instead of the world that's currently here, which allows us to then be more creative and focused on content creation and creativity and bringing new tools and ways to the world so that we can educate people in a way that allows them to come to the same experiences that we have so that they can be free, like we're free, and be happy, like we're happy, so we can live a happier life on earth, right? I found that content creators and educators have a unique gift of breaking down complex spiritual teachings into messages that others can easily relate to and apply. Their work serves as a bridge between divine truth and everyday life, empowering others to grow spiritually through the content that they offer. Whether they're writing or writing books, writing essays, speaking, doing creative projects, they inspire their audience to explore their own spiritual journeys with clarity and enthusiasm. Their passion for uplifting others drives their vision and helps them to connect diverse audiences in meaningful ways. But the authority problem in here that can kind of block us from the ultimate amazingness that this perspective offers is that we find ourselves attaching sense of worth to our work and then relying on external validation rather than God aligned purpose, which is very easy to do. That when we put out work and people are constantly like, oh my God, that's amazing, that's so helpful, that's so awesome, we can start to, over time, take that as like the validation we need that we're doing good. So that if we don't get that immediate gratification, we feel like something is wrong. And so that can like pull us away from our spirit, away from the truth of what's going on. And that over identification with the role as creator or teacher can make it difficult to separate our value from how the audience perceives us, right? So that if our audience doesn't like the message that we gave out that day, it can crumble us. Whereas if we're aware of that and we keep our mind training about it and we can recognize those tendencies, it's much, much, much easier for us to be like, oh, I recognize that I'm being triggered by what this person says about my stuff. Holy Spirit, can you help me? Right? We have this default to prayer, this default to ask for help, this default to correct our perception immediately so that we don't fall down that spiral of hole. So it's really, really important to prioritize listening to divine guidance over our audience's expectations. Okay. And otherwise, we're going to be kind of deterred away from our authentic expression, which obviously we want to authentically express ourselves and be authentically helpful in every way possible. The affirmation for these people is my value is rooted in God's love. And I trust that my creativity flows from divine inspiration and not external approval. Divine inspiration, not external approval. Very important. But this is also at the top of the perspectives. Okay. But, we're leaning into a conclusion here because we got through the 12. Congratulations. At this point, I bet that your eyes are now open and you see more about yourself and others than you ever did before. We've kind of made ourselves to the highest level of perspective that you can kind of get in the spiritual space. But there's a few more things that I want to talk about here that can lead us to more of an understanding of oneness and unity and God's will and all those things. Okay. But before I get to that, I just want to point out how proud I am of you. Like the fact that you're still here really means that you are a serious, dedicated spiritual seeker, right? That you are dedicated to where you're at and where you're going, which means that you're here to experience the highest quality of life you possibly can and also offer the highest quality of life to others. Like that's so commendable. Like I'm so proud of you and so grateful that you're here. I hope that these conversations have opened up your eyes so that you can know more about yourself and about others and where you're at and where you're going. And I really do also hope that it brings more peace to you in your relationships. And so if that has touched you, but now that we've finished going through these 12 perspectives, I want you to tell me below, which spiritual perspective are you most like? Which one are you most like? And if you haven't yet, go take that quiz and see if you were right. It's actually really kind of cool to do that. It helps you with your own self understanding of where you're at, right? But the final things that I want to add on here is that we need to learn, we must learn how to hold space for all of these different perspectives and to not shy away from any of it. We don't want to shy away from the ideologies. We don't want to shy away from the questioning. We don't want to shy away from the emotions. We don't want to shy away from any of these perspectives because we're learning to see beyond the perspective to the truth. We are learning to see beyond what their current thoughts are to the goal we share, which is peace. Everyone on the spiritual path wants peace. Just a lot of people have different ways of getting to that peace. So just because they're trying to access peace from a different perspective doesn't mean they're wrong, doesn't mean they're bad. It's just different. So we have to honor everyone immensely and respect everyone, no matter where they're coming from. And let's keep in mind, there's probably many more perspectives in this that are not spiritual. So let's keep that in mind too. They also deserve compassion and patience and empathy. And they also deserve for us to accept them right where they are. And you know what? The best way to teach someone is to demonstrate. The best way to teach someone is to demonstrate. So if you want to help others who are on the lower rungs of the spiritual perspective or not yet quite spiritual at all, the best way to help people to change is by you changing. Demonstrate the way, demonstrate the peace, demonstrate the love. When I first demonstrated the way and demonstrated the love, my parents thought that I was crazy because I was living life completely different than I did before. They were scared that I lost my mind. But over years, they started to see the fruit in my life. They saw the joy is consistent. They saw how much I helped others and how much my life had transformed. And they go, maybe there's something to this thing. And then they start asking the questions and then they start getting curious and they want to know more. And then your relationships start to evolve into a much more meaningful direction because you weren't trying to force this down people's throats. You were just demonstrating it yourself and loving and accepting them where they were and having patience that if they're ready to learn or want to grow or want to evolve along with you, that they're just going to ask and can be part of it naturally on their own time as they follow their own inner teacher. Okay. So the final thoughts that I have on this, my friends, is that we see that there are many different perspectives, but there is only one universal truth. So it's really important to remember there's not your truth and my truth. There's your perspective and my perspective. There is only one universal truth. And God, our creator, is the one who is responsible for defining what truth is. And we are told that this one truth is that we are God's children and that everything's gonna be okay. We are God's children and everything's gonna be okay. So knowing this truth, that we are all God's children, that means that we're all equals. Okay. And that means that we all are contained within this one truth. And this one truth also does not include our egos. Our egos are what struggles. Our egos are what has the authority problem. Our egos are the ones that experience pain and fear. But these are just shadows that we observe. They're not who we really are. What we are is God's child, which is light, which is the soul, which is love that does not change. It's unharmable and wholly lovable in every way. This is the truth of you. This is the truth of me. And this is the truth of everyone who has a perspective, period. Okay, so we can have different perspectives. You can have your perspective. I can have my perspective, but there's one truth. And when we allow our thoughts and beliefs to be corrected, they will naturally come into accord with truth because there is only one truth and it's found within. Okay. So the truth is for all creation We don't get to choose what truth is. We just get to accept what truth is. And that's such a celebration because that says that we're not self-made. We are divinely authored. We are divinely authored. And when we accept our divine authorship, then there's no way we can get caught in the authority problem anymore because we know who we are. We know who God is. We know why we're here. Okay, we know what our goal is as individuals and as a collective humanity. Like, that's a big deal. This isn't about trying to, you know, be the oneness beyond the world. This is about remembering our oneness in the world so that we can be in the world, but know we're not of it. That is our true power. That's what Jesus did. He knew that he was God's son, but he also knew that he was walking this earth where there's a lot of pain and there's a lot of suffering and there's a lot of darkness. So Jesus knew that he was the light of the world and that he was here to bring light into the world. And that's what he did. Okay. We are learning to do the exact same thing. We have a different curriculum, right? We're going to experience different things. We're coming at it from a different perspective. We're starting at a different place, but ultimately our goal is the same. So what's at the top of the perspective ladder? Christ consciousness. It's the highest level of vision possible. And that is shared. That is shared. So when we are upset, we're fearing, we're in pain, we want to be wrong in what we see so that the spirit can be right. And the spirit can teach us how to properly perceive. And when we properly perceive things and we have our thoughts be exchanged from fear to love, from pain to joy, we raise up the ladder of consciousness. We raise up the ladder of perception until we reach the top, which is where we can have our revelatory spiritual experiences that allow the truth that God created us to fill our heart and mind, bring us so much joy and clarity and certainty. It's such a beautiful thing. And then we can go out in the world and allow it to express through us and bless the world with miracles. Bless the world with miracles. That is why we are here, says the A Course in Miracles. And I'm so grateful that it is so. So this was so much. Just take a deep breath, my friends. It's anchored in. Anchor in this truth within you. There is one truth that is for all of us. And we are all learning to clear out our ideas of truths so we can come to an experience of the one truth, the one mind, the one will, the one path, the one self. This is reminding me of a thought in the Course that says, I am one self, united with my creator, at one with every aspect of creation, limitless in power and in peace. My friends, it is only the ego that would say thinking that you are the light is arrogant. Thinking that you are at one with God and all living things, the ego would say is arrogance. But let's get real and think about this. It could only ever be the ego that is arrogant to think that you are anything other than what God created you to be. That's ultimate arrogance. And so let's refuse to deny what we are, but instead open to the magnitude that we are. You don't have to know it. You don't have to understand it. You don't have to believe it. You don't even have to fully agree with me. But if you are a little bit willing and open, you will, through the guidance of your inner teacher, be led up the ladder of perception until you have your own experiences where the light illuminates your mind and clears out the darkness and reminds you of who you are and who God is and why you're here. You want that? I know I did. And I know I allowed myself to receive it. Okay, I'm not perfect. I'm still wiggling through the steps along with you guys, but there's hope in this. There is a way in this. There's the truth in this, and we can trust this. It's safe to trust this spiritual path. We're all doing it together. We're all holding each other's hands, and I'm so grateful to be doing this with you. So my friends, thank you for joining me today. If you haven't done it, go fill out that quiz. It's down there waiting for you. If you have friends or family that you feel could benefit from this as well, please send this to them. Let them know as well, if they're not able to listen to the whole thing, to just go to the perspective that they feel might be them, or just take the quiz if they're curious, and just little baby steps at a time to help our brother and sister souls along the path with us and healing and divine love. But with all of this being said, I really do hope that this brought clarity to your mind and peace to your heart and helped to provide you with some tools that can help you to better understand yourself, better understand others, and come closer in having meaningful relationships that are founded in truth and love that joined us together as well. So thank you, my friend, for being here. Until next time, see you in the next video. Peace.